Welcome, IT changemakers, to the Deck Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the Deck Show. I have to say, it's that rare occasion. It's a sunny day in London. We haven't seen many of them at all this summer whatsoever. I am flying solo this morning because we really wanted to catch our special guest while he was able to talk to us. I believe he's joining us from Singapore. So let's welcome Jason Averbook. He is the author of a book that really caught our attention, The Ultimate Guide to a Digital Workforce Experience, Leap for a Purpose. And we're going to be discussing that today. Jason, warm welcome to the Deck Show.
Hey, Tom, thanks so much. It's great to be here. And yes, joining from Singapore, where it is sunny as well, about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So what's that, about 32 degrees Celsius? So quite warm.
Not bad. I suspect a sunny day in Singapore is a bit more of a common occurrence than in London, but I've never visited, so that's just a guess.
Well, if you love humidity, this is the place to come. Humid.
If you love humidity, you'll love Singapore. Might be a sort of an inadvisable tourist,
Exactly. Slogan. T-shirt. Make a T-shirt, yes, right?
Yeah. What finds you in Singapore today, Jason?
I'm doing a keynote speech tomorrow at a major HR technology conference here. The HR technology conference in Singapore is one of the largest in the whole Asia region, and it's put on by a media company called People Matters. So large community here, about 2,500 people or so at the event. So, and we'll be talking all about the being digital in the world today and how do we create a digital experience.
Very cool. And after, it's actually a shame my co-host Tim Flower couldn't be with us this morning because we recorded, I think, a couple of years ago, many episodes on the kind of confluence of HR and IT, and this year we've been recording, as you might expect, Jason, many episodes about AI and its influence on the workplace. And I'm super excited to talk to you about the additional confluence between those two areas. But perhaps just to begin with, Jason, just for the audience, introduce yourself and give us a quick overview of your work so far.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So I have spent my whole life in the world of HR and HR technology. And I was not raised by my parents to be in HR or HR technology, but somehow ended up in the... Oh, man, I thought you were.
Yeah, they had one aim for me.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I started when I was 20 years old, implementing DOS mainframe payroll systems for a company called Ceridian Corporation. I had an opportunity to write the industry's first Windows application after that. Left there to join a company called PeopleSoft, where I did everything from implement PeopleSoft to run product strategy for PeopleSoft. Then in 2004, decided I was sick of people saying they hated my technology, and really said I wanted to get on the services side of it, the other side of the table, and say, why do people struggle so much with technology? Technology is magical. It can create this amazing competitive edge, yet so many people are only okay with it once they go live. They go live and they're like, it didn't really meet the goals. And next thing you know, they're looking for an RFP. So I really wanted to solve that problem and really have spent the last 2 decades working with organizations on transforming how they think about the concept of not doing tech, but being digital.
Got it. I mean, your most recent book, I think, as I mentioned, The Ultimate Guide to a Digital Workforce Experience, as I say, caught our attention here for quite obvious reasons. How did you become interested specifically in the way digital is impacting employee experience in more recent years?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, and it's an easy question. And what really started the focus on this is when the combination of 3 things were happening. A, people were struggling with getting quote unquote adoption. They were struggling with getting people, the average person who doesn't know how to spell HR, to use pieces of HR technology. And the reason why is because it was a terrible experience. It was a bunch of disjointed processes. It was just a bunch of stuff thrown up on an intranet or a link farm. No one could find anything. The search didn't work. And people are like, why is no one like this? That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that outside of work became so much easier to get stuff done than inside of work. So, wow, it's easy to get stuff done outside of work. I mean, look, it's 2024. I always say it's 2024 outside of work. What year does it feel like inside of work? Most people would say it feels like 2000. So the second
2010,
thing was this.
Jason, what do you think?
Well, let's say 2010, but most organizations would tell you that it's much easier to get stuff done outside of work than inside of work. And the experience that I have using tools outside of work is easier than the tools I have to work with inside of work. And then the third thing that really, really became clear to me is that what we were doing in companies is we were focused on getting people connected instead of building connection. What we were trying to do is say, how do I get people connected to this technology? How do I get people to dial in? How do I get them to authenticate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? That was the goal. But what was missing was the human side of it, which is how do you build connection with people in a digital world? And then, Tom, of course, COVID happened, where everyone all of a sudden started working remotely. And guess what? I used to walk by people and say good morning. Now all of a sudden I go on Slack or Teams and say good morning. And what do people say? What do you want? I'm like, what happened? It used to be, if I was with someone live, there'd be one experience, but then digital, it was a different experience. And all of a sudden I was like, we have to think about this.
I got to pick up on this, Jason, because I've been there for debates, in office debates, because we're quite a global organization. The next thing, right? And you find a definite cultural difference in our many kind of mainland European colleagues. Will, when reaching out to you on Teams, we'll start with a good morning, how are you? And the English and Americans, we tend to be like, I wasn't saying I wasn't bad mouthing my European colleagues on this front, but I was listening to people say, goodness, it's annoying. They're going to ask a question. Can we just get on with it? Now, that's not. Do you think a reasonable middle ground here is good morning, hope you're well, and straight into the point of order, or do you think this the Europeans have it right? There should be some obligatory niceties, a la the IRL workplace in our Teams comms. You're tending towards the latter.
Tom, if you and I worked in the same company, I would reach out to you and say good morning, and I wouldn't want anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I wouldn't even want. There wouldn't be anything else. I would just say good morning.
That is
like, hey, good morning. I'd say, hey, there's 5 green dots. There's 5 people in my team that are currently online, and I'll say good morning. But the funny thing is some people say back to me, what do you need? I'm like, nothing. I was just saying good morning.
It's the fault of these Europeans, Jason. They've confused the whole issue here.
Well, but I think what's really interesting is that digital changes people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're humans outside of work. What's really important is we're the same human inside of work. Oftentimes, we're not even, I've been outside of work and inside of work today, and I've been sitting in this same chair in my hotel room. Okay, we're the same human, but why are the rules different outside of work and inside of work? Why is the feeling different outside of work and inside of work? Which drives it, when we think about that, that's experience. Experience equals feeling.
That's interesting, and that probably leads us perhaps to the larger question we're going to discuss today, which is that evolving dynamic between IT and HR. And it's particularly pertinent one to NextThink, which concentrates on the area of digital employee experience, which we'll get to momentarily. But first of all, how do you see that dynamic between these previously extremely discrete functions evolving and starting to influence one another? And where do you think that's ultimately going?
So, Tom, one of the things that I like to think is that the HR department owns its digital strategy. Now, when I say that, people that think IT get really mad at me. And the next thing I say is that digital is different than technology. Digital does not equal technology. It's one of the key premises in the book. Digital is a mindset. Digital is a way of working, digital is a way of being, and HR should own the digital strategy as to how does it want to deliver capabilities and services to a workforce.
Hmm.
What IT should do is be the organization that enables that strategy, that brings that strategy to life using various pieces of technology. So it is a very, very close partnership between the function and IT, but very distinct roles. The design, intently said design, of the experience should be something that HR talks about. What are my measures of success? Is my measure of success go live? It shouldn't be. Is my measure of success how do people feel? It should be more like that.
Hmm.
Come up with the measures of success, come up with what it is that I'm trying to achieve, and then work with IT. But so often, Tom, what happens is we throw over a bunch of weird requirements to IT. They build something, it comes back to us, and they're like, this isn't what we wanted. I'm like, you said you wanted 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. But dummy IT, I have a dog. You didn't say you had a dog. Well, dummy IT, I have to go upstairs? You didn't say you couldn't walk upstairs. So, does that make sense? It has to be a joint partnership between HR thinking design, IT building, and then continuing to innovate and focus on what we call betterment.
Mm. And do you see like as sort of an outgrowth of that dynamic, maybe I mean, it sounds like IT in the way you describe it, maybe I have it wrong, kind of slightly becomes absorbed into HR if HR is owning the strategy. But of course, HR or overseeing that design, as you call it, that could be an ultimate outcome for an ambitious technologist now, right? Rather than somebody coming from the more traditional areas of human engagement. I mean, what's your view on how this kind of affects kind of company dynamics and structure and also traditional career paths?
So, Tom, I believe that HR needs to have its design chops.
Hmm.
I think IT, okay, your question depends on the person and the skill set.
Of course.
There are people in IT that probably would do better in the role of a digital HR leader.
Yeah.
There are people in IT that would do better as someone who's thinking about cybersecurity, thinking about how integrations work between agents in the AI world. It's stuff I don't want HR thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's people that understand the prescription, and there's people that understand how to do the surgery. Okay, IT understands how to do the surgery, quote unquote. HR is saying, what is it that's the problem? Helping me understand diagnosing the problem. But when it comes to that hands-on or that coding work, I don't want HR doing that. Okay,
Mm.
because it has to fit into a wide spectrum of an existing body. And if I don't have the right IT people doing that, I end up with organ rejection.
Which maybe leads us to data, right? You kind of argue in the book for the importance of a robust data foundation. And in a way that elicits the kind of paradoxical realm we've entered because nothing sounds less about experience or feeling than data. And yet data is increasingly integral to being able to actually measure feeling in organizations. So I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
So, Tom, I'm going to repeat back something you said. Data is important to measure feeling. And I'm going to change that a little bit and say data is important to create feeling.
Right.
Okay, because when we think about the ultimate experience is that a machine knows me, everything about me, how I work, where I live, all of the data about me within an enterprise. When I go on to use a machine, and I'm saying use a machine intentionally, that machine knows everything about me. It knows the language I speak. It knows how fast I type. It knows whether I like to touch or talk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that being said, data, not only do I use data to measure the experience, I use data to create the experience. And that's why I say the better our data, data's the spine of experience. The better our data, the better the experience can be.
Mm. I love that, and it kind of opens another door, which is to the current landscape of AI and machine learning. I mean, what role do you see these as playing, or what opportunities for innovation do you see them as introducing into this question of employee experience and the digital employee experience as an aspect of that?
Oh, Tom, I don't talk about my book anymore because the book is dead.
Sure, sure. I
I
guess
mean,
I know what you
I
mean.
mean,
You know, like the
yeah,
world's
there's
changed
some
a lot in the last
concepts
few months. Yeah.
there's some concepts in the book that make sense, but anyone that has an employee experience today,
Mm.
your employee experience in 12 months is going to look completely different.
Facts.
And it's going to be driven by generative AI. And the key to that is, instead of me knowing how to use a machine, it's going to be about the machine knowing how I work.
Hmm.
That's the power of generative AI, is a human conversation. The ability to understand speech, the ability to understand picture, the ability to understand data, and to create an experience for me that matches that. So our days of counting the clicks, our days of navigating portals and intranets, our days of searching and not finding things are over. As long as we design the experience for what we want, and we now switch from leveraging old school AI 2.0, which was basic machine learning, a lot of coding, a lot of programming, to what generative AI is doing, which is learning every day based on how I navigate and how I work.
Ears couldn't help but prick up earlier when you mentioned digital adoption. It's something we've discussed a lot on the show recently. The ability for employees to quickly learn, use, and fully exploit new technology is obviously hugely important. And it's obviously hugely important to you. We spoke about that dynamic between HR and IT. Do you see IT as playing an increasingly significant role in trying to help those employees adapt to enjoy, really, really master the technologies which are coming their way so thick and fast? And what are your broader thoughts on adoption?
IT knows the canvas it has. IT knows the space it has to paint within. Okay. So, what I mean by that, so first of all, adoption is not IT's job. Okay. I want to make that really, really clear.
Mhm.
Adoption is not IT's job.
Sure.
IT's job is to work with the design it has to make sure that it can meet the employee or the user. I hate to say the word user, Tom. I like to say human. Meet the human where they are, instead of having them go somewhere, so that it becomes what we call frictionless.
Hmm.
Okay. But so often we focus on, hey, let's think about how do I design that, I'll call it an experience to drive adoption. My measure of success shouldn't be adoption. I was with an organization last week who said, guess what? We've had 1,500 out of 1,800 people adopt this tool. And I was like, oh, cool. What's the impact? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, 1,500 out of 1,800 is pretty high. What's the
Hmm.
impact? They're
Hmm.
like they honestly said, what do you mean? I said, well, what don't you understand? I'm like, well, they said, well, 1,500 out of 1,800 people have used it. I'm like, well, what's the impact? They're like, we have no idea. I said, how long did they stay there? We have no idea.
Hmm.
All they were counting is how many IP addresses hit a site.
Hmm.
And by the way, if that's what you think is success, cool.
Hmm.
But when you go to make an ROI statement back to a CFO that, oh, you had 1,500 out of 1,800 people adopt, it's a pretty lame statement with not much meat behind it. So, what you want to do is measure impact, measure results. That should really be the key as to what's driving the measurement of adoption.
And going back to the notion of empathy, well, going to the notion of empathy, It's a big theme in your book. We haven't really touched upon it today. And I doubt that's an aspect of your book which is out of date. In fact, I would suspect that empathy is permanent, whatever the changing technological circumstances might be. I guess the question is, how can HR leaders balance that need for technological advancement while maintaining the human touch in employee interactions? More generally, how can they implement that kind of a culture, encourage it, nurture it? What are your views?
So the first thing that you have to do is you have to know your workforce. You have to know the personas that you're designing for. So if I'm designing for an airline, for example, a big program I just have been working on basically for a while, they have three personas: in the air, on the ramp, and corporate.
Makes
And
sense.
guess what? Because I know how those workers work, I can design for them. That means I can be empathetic towards them. I can be empathetic towards the fact that they're not sitting at a desk all day long because they're flying a plane. Okay? I can be empathetic to a nurse versus a CXO of a hospital because I know how they work. I know what they do. Empathetic means being able to show care for a human. But there's even little things I can do, like not call users users.
Yeah.
Like, it is not a glamour statement to say, hey, you're a user. Hey, guess what? You're coming to user testing. Hey, guess what? You're our super user. Like, I'm a human. I'm a person.
Would you change all that to human? You're our superhuman. You're coming to human testing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And but when we think about AI, the equation for the best AI experience today is AI plus EI equals augmented intelligence.
Nice.
Artificial intelligence plus emotional intelligence equals augmented intelligence. The balance of machines and people working together. That's if you can reach that blend, that's a huge measure of success. That's hard because what you have to do is balance heads work, hands work, and hearts work in the right way to put together the ultimate experience.
Okay, two-part question to finish off, and then I want to hear a bit more about what I suspect you're working on, which is a new book, which updates some of those principles to this quite radically different age we've been living in the last 2 years. And that is, what would your main advice be to HR professionals for future-proofing their career by better encompassing digital and digital sensitivity? Vice versa, what would be your advice to IT professionals as their roles become more focused on employee experience?
So for HR people, there's my keynote. Let me tell you the name of my keynote
Go for it.
tomorrow. It's the
Spoiler
R
alert
word.
for anyone in Singapore. But
Yeah, it's the R word. Do you know the Tom word? The R word?
yeah. The R word.
Not the F word, the R word.
Not the F word, thankfully. The R word. Relationships? Relating?
Close.
Yeah.
Relevance.
Relevance. Okay.
How do you stay relevant?
Got it. Yeah.
How do you stay relevant in today's world? And I like to use the acronym LEAD. Okay? Learning, always learning. Okay? The E is thinking about the concept of emotion and empathy. The A is focusing on adaptability, which is being open to change. And the D is having that digital mindset. So for me, for every HR leader, having those four things, a learning what is AI and why is it going to impact experience? Once again, the E, how am I going to use technology and embed humanity into it? The A, how am I going to change or unlearn a bunch of the old ways that I've worked? And then D, think about that concept of digital fitness or digital empathy, digital mindset. Okay, lead. Now, from an IT standpoint, my recommendation is to basically understand your customer. Understand your customer because your customer is going to be doing things on their smart device that are going to be way ahead of anything that you have internally in your enterprise. When I start using Apple Intelligence on my device in 2 weeks, when iOS 18 is released to everyone, which basically means every time I send an email, I can be using Gen AI and prompting. And inside the company, I haven't built that yet. When I'm able to say, Siri, create an Instagram post, take a picture with my watch, post it to Instagram, tag Tom, who's in my contacts, to it, and at the same time send him an email so that he sees the Instagram post. And it does it without me ever navigating through apps, systems, menus, or things like that. All of a sudden, I have that chasm of what's happening outside of work versus how things work inside of work. So that's why I say to IT, understand what your customer is looking at, what they're looking for, because what they're trying to do is keep up with what's happening in the consumer world to create some sort of an experience that somehow matches the outside of work and inside of work. That chasm, by the way, Tom, I hate to get too detailed, but that chasm is about to explode.
Right.
It is about to feel like, it's going to be 2025 outside of work, and it's going to feel like a long way back inside of work when all of a sudden everyone has BYOAI.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. Excellent advice. And is there a new book, Jason, or is the book outmoded at this point? What do you think?
Tom, the book is being constantly written.
Yeah.
I'm not writing a physical book at the moment.
Right.
I'm writing LinkedIn posts and Medium posts every single day of my life. I'm doing podcasts every day of my life because
things every day. Yeah.
they're just like I, the parent of two boys, 19 and 16, would not dare guess what their job will be in 5 years. I would not dare spend the time to write something right now that someone's going to look at in 5 years and say, wow, this is what he said 5 years ago. Because that's how, if you just look at how fast a generative pre-trained transformer is learning today.
Yeah.
Between 2022 and 2023 and 2024, the OOM order of magnitude is millions X. So to think that we could somehow guess what people are going to use these tools to do, it's going to be the power of the brain. I like to think, Tom, when it comes to experience, we are all in a movie right now. We are all actors in a movie in 2024. And guess what? In 2030, someone's going to watch the movie and say, what did these people do in 2024? That's our opportunity right now when it comes to creating an experience that's relevant for today.
Fascinating. Jason, what a pleasure it's been to talk to you this sunny morning. It's been as nice to talk to you as it has been to see sun in the sky here in London. Where can people find you and follow this, as you say, ongoing book that's being written daily?
Tom, I think, wherever, social channels everywhere. Just my name, Jason Averbook. Yeah. Follow me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the first source. I use X a lot. I'm lucky enough to work for an amazing organization called Mercer, where I lead our global practices around these areas. So any of those sources are fine, but connect, say you heard this, say hi. It's the best, to me, it's the best way to think about the difference between, like I said earlier, getting connected and building connection. When someone reaches out and say they heard a podcast, it's such an amazing connection. So if anyone's listening, please do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. Say good morning, as we say.
Just say good morning. And I'm not going to say, what do you want? Promise.
It's a guarantee. Jason, best of luck with your keynote tomorrow. Enjoy being in Singapore. Enjoy that humidity. And thanks so much for a wonderfully thought-provoking episode. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate it.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.